All right, we're back with a cool video. This time we're going to be implementing CyberSource Gateway's card art feature. This feature allows you to get the card image asset so you can create a nice wallet for your website or app that looks like this. So instead of just displaying the cards that they have, you can actually display the picture of the actual card on your wallet, like how it is right now on the screen. So this is what we're going to be trying to implement today. Okay, so this feature is part of the CyberSource tokenization solution known as Token Management Service. We covered this in a previous video. Check the link for that in the description box below. As a part of that feature, there's an API, it's called Retrieve Card Art. This allows you to retrieve the card image or other logos related to the card using the token that you created for your card with TMS. So this is the API that I showed in my previous video. What it does is that you put the token here and then it will pull all the customer information, including their payment token. This is the payment token, also known as the instrument identifier. And then, while this gives you all the information about the card, it also gives you the URL here for the card image. It's called Card Art Combined. It's the full card image. When you call this API with your instrument identifier, aka the token here, it's gonna return the data for that card image that I was displaying over here, but it's going to return it as base64 encoded data. You can use this data over here to create this image on your app or website. So it's very straightforward to implement. We just need two API calls. This API call that gets the tokenized card details. This is going to give you the URL to the logo, and then you're going to do another API request to get the actual data for the card image. And then the last step will be to display that on your client side like this. So let's go ahead and implement this with a brand new wallet that doesn't have the cards in it. So it looks like this. When I select the card, just nothing gets displayed. And I'm gonna use the APIs that I showed you guys to get the card image and display it here for the user. This is the React project that I'm working on. In here, I already have the user tokens. This is simulating me pulling those tokens for the user from my database. And I have some placeholder data that just here to show you guys what this would look like in these radio buttons. Here, use effect is where I'm gonna be calling my APIs to pull the tokenized card information and the card image. This just gets the logo, this handles the change for the selection for the card and does that animation of the card switching like this. This is the actual card component. Here, right now, I have a condition that says if card art is not null, then you're gonna display the card image like this. Card.art. This is coming from this array over here, sorted cards. I loop through this and I render get card component, which shows the card image here. And this is a state variable here that I'm gonna set later after I call my APIs. And that's all the parts that matter. So let's go ahead and do the first step, which is to implement this API request that gets the tokenized card detail. We're going to pass the token and get the card details here. We need this to get this URL that's going to get us the image. So the first step will be to implement this right here. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, this should be all. Let's go ahead and test this, see if it works. Cool, looks like it works. Just making sure. Yeah, it works. So what did we do here? What I did is that I'm passing my token at the end of the URL. Then here at the request, I'm getting it using this piece of code over here. Let me zoom in so you guys can see. I just split it by the slash, and then pop gives me the last thing in the end of that URL after I split it using the slashes. Here I have the request path, which is the path of the API and the host, which I use both here and here. So, and then here I got create headers. Create headers is an NPM package that I created to help you guys authenticate CyberSource API requests easily. You just plug in your credentials and your request details, and it spits out an object that looks like this that you can use as your headers for your request, like what I'm doing here. Finally, I return the full response back to the client side. Now, since this is all good, I can go ahead and deploy it to production. I'm going to use it then in my next step. My next step will be then to get the URL that I get from here to call this API will give me the image data. So now I'm going to implement a second endpoint that uses this API that I'm deploying to get the URL, this URL, which then will lead me to call this API and get the image data in base64 format. And then I'm going to send this back to the client side as a buffer. So let's go ahead and work on that while my other API is deploying. I'm going to implement the second API here. Okay, so here I'm doing the same thing. When this API gets called, this is the API that's going to get the art. I'm getting the token, and then we're going to pass it to this method. This method is going to get me the request path by calling the API that I just deployed and built over here. So it's going to pass it the token, and it's going to make another API call to this endpoint that I just created. And then that endpoint is going to respond by a payload that looks like this, which is going to have the URL to the card art. So now I got to get this value over here and then use it as my request path to the second API request. So here I got to return metadata, card art, combined, asset, then links, then self, then href. All right, just making sure I got it right. Okay, that's gonna get called, and then I'm gonna get the URL, and then it's gonna get assigned to request path. I also got the host, and then everything is gonna be built the same as the previous request. Now here, this API is gonna get called, and it's gonna return the data as base 64 encoded. I don't want it to return it like this. We don't want the image to be returned to the client side like this. We need to convert it to a buffer. So here, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna set our response header, content type, to this value over here, content type image/png. Cool. Now that's the first step. Now the second step here, I need to send back a buffer, which is a raw form of data. So here I'm gonna send back buffer, and I'm gonna use the same thing here, cybersource-response data. I know I have a typo in cybersource-response, but it's fine. Data, and then the second parameter here, I'm gonna say base 64. The data of the image. Okay, so just make sure everything is okay here, and let's go ahead and test it in the simulator. Here is the simulator link, fingers crossed. And nice, it's working. Now let's try instead a MasterCard token to see how that looks like. I'm gonna pass a MasterCard token, and we're getting the MasterCard card image. Cool, now this is ready. We're good to deploy this to production and then use this in a client side. We're gonna be actually using both endpoints in the client side. So let's go ahead and move and work on the client side part. Okay, so here on the client side, we're gonna go to use effect. This is the method that gets called as soon as the component mounts. Here we're gonna create three methods. One is called get card details, which is gonna get the card details such as expiry, type, mass card number, and so on. Okay, so here in get card detail, I'm calling the API that's gonna get me the card detail that I built here, the first API. And this API is gonna get me everything that I need to know about the card, like this. Now I need to sort out these into my data format. So in my case, this is the data format. Okay, so this is my data format, but I gotta add some magic here to format it even better. So here, I'm making the first letter in the card type. So for example, V in Visa, I want the V to be a capital letter Visa. Here, I'm putting a space between each four numbers in the card and changing the X's from big X's to small X's. Like, as you can see, here, it's big X's. So to make it look nicer, I'm making the X smaller. Here, I'm getting the logo URL using the method that I have here. I pass it the card type, and it gives me the Wikipedia image URL for that card brand. Here I'm combining the expiry month and year. And that's all. So that's the first step in use effect. Now the second method that we need to implement inside use effect is the method that's going to get the actual card image. Okay, so this is the method that gets the card art image. Here we just say if the card pass is null, just return the card object as it is. This is just to not break anything. Then here I make call to my card art API, passing it the token, ID and saying here that the response type is going to be a blob, which is basically a file. And when I get it, I pass back the same card object, but I add a parameter to it called art, and there I create a URL to the picture that I just retrieved so that I can display that picture. Now, the last method we need to build is a method that connects these two. Okay, so this line of code is gonna loop through my user tokens, and for each one of them is gonna call get card details, and then it's gonna build an array of card objects that pretty much look like this, but with the actual data. Now this line of code is going to loop through the cards again, the new card array with the actual data, and just add the card art for each one of them. Lastly, I'm going to set cards data here after this is called, so that I can load the card data in the UI without the card images in case the image download takes too long. Then after that, here, when I get the card images, I'm going to load it again so that I get the images asynchronously of getting the actual card data, so that I don't delay the loading of everything just for the card images. Now the last step would be to call this in use effect. So let's go ahead and do that and see what happens. Save and refresh. There you go, it's working. Now, final touch. It says here no card image available. I just want to add a loading indicator there instead. So here, I'm gonna go down to where I have no card image available. I'm just gonna take this out. I'm gonna add circular progress. Save, refresh. Check this out. This looks much nicer, right? And this is how to implement card art for your wallet on your website and make it look much nicer, make it look similar to that cool wallet that Apple Wallet has, where they show the picture of each of your cards. And that's all. Pretty straightforward, 2 APIs, easy to implement. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Or if you want the full source code for this project, check out the Patreon link in the description box below. I post all my source codes there. It helps us support the channel and keep me posting more and more videos like this. Otherwise, you can totally follow this tutorial and build everything by yourself from scratch. Again, hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.